We are so honored to be hosting on day 4,403 of Boswell Being in Business, Jennifer Billock, the author of Classic Restaurants of Milwaukee. Jennifer is an author, editor, and owner of the editorial firm Jennifer Billock Creative Services. She has worked with businesses and publishers, including Smithsonian, New York Times, National Geographic Traveler, and more. And now she is joining us. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My honor. So I love to eat, like many of the folks attending today, and we are excited about talking about some of the places in your book. Just showing it here and sending, if you're the last person to have bought it, you can purchase it at Boswell. We have copies available. It's part of the History Press series, and there's lots of wonderful photographs for classic restaurants in Milwaukee. I was just learning that I love insider information, and Jennifer was just telling me that the publisher sends all the files, asks for all the files to be just numbered. Did I get that right?
Yeah, the pictures are all just a three-digit numerical code when you send them.
Which means that if you don't play your cards right, you might not know where your pictures are afterwards. What was it like to write this one?
This one was a lot of fun. So I've been coming, I grew up in Illinois, just over the state line. So I've been coming to Milwaukee like my entire life to go to restaurants and to just kind of experience the city. So it was a really good project for me to kind of tap into some nostalgia as well as some fun history in Milwaukee when I was living in Bayview. So it was great. I loved walking around and like looking at the spaces where restaurants were and looking at the places that are still there and trying the horrendously but delicious greasy burger at Solly's and talking to just people who are just a wealth of information. And it was very entertaining.
You speak of Solly's and you feel there's always been a lot of argument over the years. I would say who invented the Butterburger might rate up there with what drive-in was the inspiration for Happy Days. What did your research, how did you approach this?
So I was under the impression that Solly's invented it, and I'm still under that impression because Culver's appeared later, and even though they're often credited for the Butterburger, they have had a conversation with the people at Solly's to say, we know you were first, like it's cool. But then there was another place, I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it was in like Green Bay or something, where they also said, yeah, Kroll's at Green Bay served a Butterburger, a burger with a pat of butter on top in 1936, which was the same year Solly's opened. So it's still up for debate. Solly's is the one that got the most popular. So I will stick with Solly's.
Some of these answers like who's the first hot dog, who's the first sundae, how many times was writing invented? I was just reading a book on alphabetical order. Perhaps as many as a dozen, by the way.
Yeah.
This is just one of the ones with the books, but Solly's is definitely one of those places. I don't think we have a photo of Solly's, but I'm sure everybody's been there on Port Washington Road. Would you like to, you do actually talk about hamburgers quite a bit in the book.
I love hamburgers, so yeah, it seemed like a natural.
Would you like to discuss any of your other hamburger gems?
I do want to read the jingle that, so hamburgers were kind of invented in 1885 by a Wisconsinite. And his name was Hamburger Charlie, and he lived in Seymour, Wisconsin. And he was serving meatballs at the county fair, but he wanted a better way for people to eat them. So he would smash them down. He'd put them between two pieces of bread. And he made this amazing jingle. And it says, hamburgers, hamburgers, hamburgers hot, onions in the middle, pickle on top, makes your lips go flippity flop. And that's it. And I love that so much. It's so funny to me.
I would say that if I was missing something in life, it's a jingle.
Yeah.
That is an excellent one. I wonder if I could adapt it. I have to say that there's nothing better than a kind of bad, kind of amazing jingle.
Yeah. Oh, and coincidentally, he fried his meatball burgers in butter. So maybe he was the first
it makes
inventor.
the story more complicated again. Yes, I know that on the Netflix, the Padma Lakshmi documentary series, when she comes to Milwaukee, talks a lot.
It was a great episode.
The German influence in hamburgers and hot dogs and things we think of as American.
There were a lot of things, though, that I wanted her to go to that she didn't. I realize she can't do everything.
I know. Yeah. It's true. But didn't you have that problem? Because I know a history press book has to have a maximum of a certain number of pages. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't have possibly included everything you wanted.
No, I couldn't. And so I had to kind of cut it off as like businesses that were open before the 70s, although Coffee Trader made it in, and a couple other ones did that were open after that, because
I was so curious about how that was going to be one of my questions. How did you make the decision? So really, so what would you say was the latest thing open, 75?
Yeah, 75, maybe 80, early 80s, but there's only like one or two of those in, because I had a list of about 400 restaurants, which like wasn't, it was more than that. It was a lot more than that, actually, but that wasn't going to be realistic. And I also had to use geographic constraints. So there were some things in I don't think I included one in St. Francis that I wanted to, but some things that were just outside the boundaries of the city I ended up having to cut, which did not sit well with a lot of people, and I apologize for that. I wish I could have written like a 800-page book about this, because there's so much history.
Because I was going to say, you mostly stuck to the guidelines of the city, but Sally's mostly.
No.
Just to be clear on geography here.
Yeah. I would look at a map and kind of like pinpoint it on the map and be like, can I get away with including this or not?
Yeah. So you included actually several drawings, which I assume were like t-shirts and things.
Yeah, they were. There's a local artist, Kieran O'Brien. He lives in or nearby Bayview, who so kindly invited me to his house to take pictures and scan all these advertisements and artworks that he did for the Coffee Trader. And I can hear if you can see that. I don't know because you're sharing or not.
Here, we'll take it away.
Yeah. So here's a couple of them. So
nice.
Kieran did the artwork for like special events and for their t-shirts, and I think one was the back of a menu or something like that. So yeah, he was so kind and so wonderful and let me come in and take pictures at his little art studio in his basement.
Well, it's being that it's down, what its location where it was is down the block from the store. Yeah, we have a lot of connection to Coffee Trader, and I just remember waiting for an hour. Forever. I can't believe. I don't like. I mean, how do people feel here about it? They're pretty good about. They like to wait for certain things, but oh my gosh. And right, and then you would have the food. I think I know who you were taught, like the server, the older server that everybody else like. So, because so I was trying to, and they had the little. Well, actually, also in terms of bookstore, at one point when I worked for Schwartz, we had the little. There was Webster's was down the block, and then Harry's Penguin was in the back, and there was I think a travel agency in the building and takeout area, and I think a clothing store at one point. It was a very interesting place.
I can't remember
what I like to eat there. I'm sure there was something.
Maybe a salad.
Yeah, it's one of those weird places. I will say, you're writing a book about bakeries now, and I will say that I used to go. There was another place on the block that was sort of infamous called Brewster's, which was actually where the Starbucks is now. And it was like before there were coffee shops, it was like a coffee shop. It was officially like a cafe with cakes. And the cakes were this tall. They were the tallest cakes you've ever seen in your life. And they would keep them for days. Like you'd get a very thin but very tall slice. And so you had to check on each cake. Because if you had a cake that was more than 2 days old, it was terrible. But if you got the cake the first day, it's really spectacular. And of course, they could have solved this problem with just having less cakes, but no, they had more cakes. So
it's
that
funny
I remember when I was
because I'm writing a book. Well, yeah, I'm writing the book about bakeries, and one of the bakeries was known for these humongous cakes that were like 3 stories tall and feed like 1,000 people. And the pictures of it are ridiculous.
What was, I know, you tell us what the name of that bakery was in Chicago.
Oh, it's Ferrara Bakery.
Ferrara.
They're still around, but they only do regular cakes now.
No 3-story cakes.
No 3-story cakes.
It is interesting how in a lot of these places you do really think of the food. One of the things, though, it would get me very confused because you had to make these decisions about breakfast and lunch and dinner. And I think you talk about George Webb, and I think I always, even though they have the burger chat, we were transitioning from burgers, they had the burger challenge for Brewers Wins, but for some reason I still think it looks to me like a breakfast place, and I'm like, I don't care what they serve, that's a breakfast place, and you had to make that decision too. Yeah, I bet you had some. I think you called. Did you say Coffee Trader? Did you feel like that was a breakfast place, or?
It was so hard with Coffee Trader.
I felt your pain as you did this.
I was like cringing over it as I would like, I had a spreadsheet that had all of the places listed, and then the next category or the next column was what chapter they're going to go in. And I would write in breakfast, and then I would delete it. And I would write in bakery, and then I'd delete it. And then I'd write in lunch, and I'd delete it. And I was like, I had no idea. It was so difficult. I think I ended up flipping a coin for one of them.
One of the things you do talk about Greebies, and I think you talk about, let me just think, you have a Moyer's thing too, right? You have Moyer's or no? It's just Greebies.
I don't think so. I think.
Okay. Moyer's was another chain like Greebies that was all over the place. They were bakeries and then they were restaurants. But the really weird thing was, I loved reading about Greebies because when I worked downtown, they were right next door to us. There was this weird thing in downtown Milwaukee where at one point there were 3 bakeries on a block. It was Greebies,
that sounds
Moyer's,
like heaven.
Yeah, and Miller's, which they were around. They closed that store, but they were doing wholesaling for many years afterwards. You always knew what a Miller's cookie looked like. And then they started doing those pretzel rolls, and they got rid of everything but the pretzel rolls. And then, of course, when they went to one product, they sold out to a big one. So very sad. But yes, I think it was very confusing to have so many bakeries on a block. But what you realize is that it wasn't the bakeries that were driving the sale, it was the coffee, because this was all before coffee. And as soon as the coffee shops started opening with their frozen bakery, all the bakeries closed.
Yeah. Oh, and I just looked, I do have MERS in here. So.
Okay, yeah, okay. I was like, God, did I read that in another book about Milwaukee food? Can that be possible? The Moyer's downtown, it was very ill-conceived. It was in an old Woolworths. It was so large. It was so large. It wasn't around very long, and that location does not deserve to be in the book. It was crazy. But yeah, the Miller's was good. Greebies, I love. They still, they obviously have the bakery, and you went and talked to them, didn't you?
Oh yeah, and I mean, I've talked to them. I eat there regularly. I love their food.
The only thing I'm sort of a little obsessed with are those little weird crullers that are dipped in chocolate.
They're so good.
Yeah, which you can get. I think Sendix sells them, and certain Speedway gas stations for some reason.
Yeah, they have a really robust gas station business.
Well, the Speedways I think are all becoming 7-Elevens. So
really?
They got activist investor for whatever the place is, the Kentucky company that owns them, forced them to sell. Wow. So most oil producers have no longer own their gas stations. They're all franchises. And this was one of the last. So I'm very sad because it means that I think the Greebies will disappear. And it's pretty far for me to get to. I think the closest one would be West Dallas, right? So
I think so. But they have a team that just works on like commercial placement like that. So I think it might still work out.
I'll find something else. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I need your support on this. Deborah, just put in that Deborah said that probably tried to have a great cheese cover. I do remember. I don't know how to buy. I know how to order cheese on sandwiches, but I know how to order sliced cheese. But I have to say that I remember it, but I didn't partake of it. Let's see. Let's look at another image. How about I pull something out and I say, let's talk about Captain Steak Joint. This is from the Marcus Archives. Is that a salad bar shaped like a ship?
Yeah, so your screen, by the way, is just the file folder with all of the pictures in a row.
Oh,
so
it's not working? Oh, okay.
Just double click on the picture and see if it opens.
How's that? Did it?
Still the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Let me see if I can find the picture in the book and hold it up. Yes, so it is a ship-shaped salad bar. So Captain Steak Joint was like a pioneer in salad bar technology, which I think is just so cool. They were, I'm trying to find the picture. It's a weird screen for you. That's odd.
It is saying, it's giving me a message saying it paused my screen sharing. So it obviously knows what's best for me.
So yeah, I think they were the first to do like a refrigerated salad bar. You know, I put a little flag next to the picture in my book and now I can't find it. So they were the first to do like a refrigerated salad bar, similar to what you would see at like just an everyday type thing.
Well, here's the outside.
Okay, yeah, what page is that on?
That's on page 88.
88. Well, I was in totally the wrong section.
I ate at the Captain's sort of towards the end of their run because there was one underneath in the basement of Juneau Village where the Metro Mart is now. And there was the Mark's Big Boy was freestanding up front, and then you go down to the luxurious basement and have salad bar. By the time I got there, you couldn't really tell the difference between the menu and Big Boy and Captain Steak Joint too much, but
yeah,
I knew it had glamorous times.
All owned by the same people. That's what happens, I guess. So I think that picture actually of the salad bar didn't make it into the book.
Oh,
so that's why I can't find it. But yeah, so their salad bar. First of all, I want a ship-shaped salad bar in my house. That is the coolest thing.
I just want to go to a salad bar again.
Yeah,
I haven't been to one in over a year.
There's a grocery store by my parents' house that like started doing their actual like salad bar thing again, and it's really, I wouldn't do it right now.
Yeah, I did go to one supermarket that had basically they had reconfigured their salad bar around a grocery person, and they were serving. So like
that's really smart.
Yeah, that was nice. I never saw it again, but once. So innovation, so was Captain's developed by Marcus? Because I know the Big Boy, you said that the Marcuses had just seen Big Boy somewhere else and brought it to Milwaukee.
Yeah, so for Big Boy, they had gone somewhere to see it and they thought, oh, I want to do this, and they came back and did it. Captain Steak Joint was a Marcus restaurant to begin with, a nautical themed steak and seafood restaurant. And it ended up being an entire chain that changed its name to Captain's. So I recognize Captain Steak Joint. It's because it was only Captain's after a little bit. Yeah, and it was, I liked this one because I was talking with the archivist at Marcus Corporation, who's super nice. And she was explaining that because it was a nautical theme, when you left the restaurant, there was like a little treasure chest for your kids to pick toys from. And it reminded me of like going to the dentist. And if I was good at the dentist, they would give me a little prize from the treasure chest. So
Junior didn't throw up, so he gets a prize.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the Captain Steak Joint wasn't around for too long. The last one closed in 1993. It was only there for about 20 years-ish. So
what I can say is that there was one seemingly across, I don't know, it was after this, it now has a different name. For a number of years it looked like Captain Steak Joint. It was on what would that be? Was that Lincoln or National? Right by the Southside Recycling Center. So I was always wondering, was that the last one? Did they sell that off or something?
Maybe. I'm sure that some of them were taken over by
independents. Well, they had I don't think you mentioned it, but like, so it went, you did mention it was Mark's Big Boy. Then it was, they got rid of the Big Boy on a few. Then they brought back the Big Boy. Then they dropped the Big Boy and they called it Mark's Family Restaurant. And then they sold the chain. It didn't go to Applebee's right away. It eventually, like the ones downtown, those were all gone. The one on North Avenue was gone. But some of the suburban ones, I think, became Applebee's eventually. But there was another brand in between, like Judy's something.
Yeah, I
don't remember what it was called. Judy's. And it's not in the book. It's not Judy's. It was a woman's name. If anyone knows, please send us the information, because I think it's going to be hard to Google. And yet I still see, it's one of those things like your brain sees that name and yet it doesn't know what the name is. Right. Would you like, since I'm heading down the South Side, would you like to talk about custard for a little? I know we've had some books exactly about custard. You did get to talk to, I think you talked to the Gillies people and the Leon's people?
Yes, and you're pronouncing Gillis is wrong. Just
oh yeah, and I did know that, but I pronounce everything else wrong.
Well, it's not fair. Yeah. Yes, I would love to talk about custard. So Gillis says, and I'll comment on that, what I just said. So Gillis is funny because they have like a swear jar for
every time they pronounce it wrong.
Every time they pronounce it wrong. And I just love that. It's so clever. They have to have special training on how to say the name. And I will correct people. I feel like a jerk when I do it. I'm like, they're actually, but
oh, I don't know. Especially nowadays, I don't know if you want to, I said something wrong in the store to somebody and she was, I'm like, oh, but would you, and fill in the blank. Anyway, the point is, you're right. It's Gillis. So no matter whether you're in Milwaukee or where's the other one that's not connected but connected? Is it in West Bend or something like that?
It's the one that's also a kids' clothing brand.
Fond du Lac?
Oshkosh.
There you go.
Oshkosh. Yeah.
But but Gillis doesn't own the clothing company.
No, unfortunately. Those would be the cutest clothes. They're a little ice.
What did you find out about custard? From what do you think?
So what I learned about custard, and I read the custard book, so a lot of my information was already supplemented by that. So I am by no means an expert on custard. I learned that it was not invented in the Midwest. It was invented on the East Coast. And it was only brought to the Midwest because it was at the Century Progress World's Fair in Chicago in 1933. Where Joe Clark, who was from Milwaukee, was visiting, tried it, loved it, came back to Milwaukee and opened his custard stand, which was Clark's Frozen Custard, the first custard stand in Milwaukee. So he then went on to open Dutchland Dairy, whose jingle I also have here if you would like to hear another jingle. We would like to hear another jingle. I've never heard it, so I can't sing it, but it's Dutchland Dairy's more than a dairy, more than a dairy store. Dutchland Dairy's more than a dairy. It's a whole lot more. A bakery, a restaurant, and a delicatessen shop. Dutchland Dairy's more than a dairy, more than a cheese and ice cream store. So I like that. They also had a fun advertisement for their fried chicken, which said it was so good and so tender you can even eat the bones, which just, that would turn me off. So delightful. Yeah. One of the things that I love about Leon's is that they don't serve hamburgers. You have to go across the street to Mazur's for the hamburger. And that's a very intentional decision. Well, because of something with the onions or something like that, isn't it? They don't want to compromise the quality of the custard. So they keep their menu intentionally simple. And I think it was Leon's that has another shop that's not affiliated with them anymore in a mall. Oh, I'm sorry. Leon's is the other one in Oshkosh. Oh, okay. Right. But that one is now called Jack's because they wanted to sell fried food and burgers and things like that.
Oh.
And Leon said, no, you can't do it. If you're going to do that, you have to change your name. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote in to say, now, of course, there are so many different kinds. Who has the best homemade sauce? So I think we're thinking Italian. And you do actually have a number of Italian restaurants in your book.
I do. Yeah.
I feel like
sauce.
Giovanni's. In fact, I was surprised. One of the through lines of this is, my goodness, organized crime controlled a lot of the restaurant business in Milwaukee at one point. I just didn't really expect that.
Yeah, I was particularly surprised by how almost every Italian restaurant was at one point owned by the mob.
Or control, or a meeting place or something like that.
Right, exactly. And as I was writing it, I was like, oh my gosh, what if like because the mob is still like active. I don't know how active in Milwaukee, but what if they read my book and they're like, we're gonna get you.
I don't think they're worried about you revealing the locations and places that have closed 30 years ago. So, okay. And honestly, you speak about all of them with love. So you might get a present and it might not even be a horse head. So,
oh, hooray.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a really good Italian sauce.
Yeah, Giovanni's, I think you have a Sally's.
And Snugs is in here.
That's right.
Eliotto's. There's a lot, yeah.
So did you find, so somebody said who had the best sauce? Were you able to, like with the burgers, did you meet, because I know you talked to both folks involved with the restaurants, and you also talked to customers, especially for places like Coffee Trader or Oriental Drugs that weren't open anymore. So did anyone talk about the food in Italian restaurants, like what their favorites were, or who did the best what? So.
Not really. Just the Sham Tort at Eliotto's was brought up several times.
And you talked a little about pizza too, I think.
About pizza, yeah. Oh, and everybody that I talked to about Sally's Steakhouse loved it. So that was one where people talked about the food to me a lot, was at Sally's. And Solly's, everybody agrees that that's the best burger. Everybody that I talked to agreed that it was the best burger. So I don't have an answer for who has the best homemade sauce and gravies. That's a difficult question.
That is, I'm going to tell you, I think that's Julie's book to write. So she'll be on here going through all of them.
Yeah.
I did get to go to Sally's before it closed. One of my sales reps back when I was a buyer, she had come here from Minneapolis. She's like, we have to go. And she mostly wanted to see what the women servers were wearing, because apparently it was a very oddly risque outfit for what you were at. And she just thought that this would make her life complete. So,
wow.
So because we were so obsessed with, and also she really wanted to see because it was decorated for Christmas all year long, I believe. And
I didn't say that. There was a German restaurant that was decorated for Christmas all year long.
It's a thing. It's a thing we do in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So yes, you do have a German corner. I think
German corner, I like that. Talk
about the big three of Mader's, Karl Rasch's, and John Ernst. What did people compare those restaurants? I ate at all three.
Karl Rasch's is far and away the favorite.
Which one?
Far and away, Karl Rasch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Personally, my favorite is Mader's. I've been going there since I was little with my parents, and I have really fond memories of like sitting in the big chair and getting the big pretzel and everything in supersize at Mader's. So.
I feel like, remembering when all of them were there, like Mader's always felt like the most like a tourist attraction. Karl Rasch's felt like like you're coming from out of town, you might as well go whole hog, I guess is appropriate for that. Like Karl Rasch's felt like the fine dining German restaurant. And John Ernst, I lived really close to it. I used to go with my parents when they would visit me. I was like, why is this so big? Because I feel like it had been like, even when I was there in the mid 80s, I was like, how's this? And I would have this feeling with a lot of places I eat in Milwaukee, how's this still here? So,
Yeah.
you know, I've been to Keggles, which I don't remember. No, it's outside the border, but to me now,
But it's in the book. It's in the
yeah,
book.
it is in the book, isn't it?
Only because
Oh.
I really liked their story. And
Yeah.
it seemed close enough that I could include it and get away with
fine with it. It's very close to the border.
Yeah, I loved their story so much, from like the hidden hatch in the floor for Prohibition to the like identity confusion of not knowing that the guy didn't know that his family owned this place. It's so cool.
And I think the Wheel and Sprocket, because it's the Wheel and Sprocket family owns it now, but they didn't. It was cousins or something that owned it before.
Yeah, they were cousins. And I'm pretty sure that they knew they were cousins. They just never knew, like never really talked to each other and never knew that the restaurant itself was in the panel.
Well, I know they've been remodeled even since I was there about a year and a half ago, but it is delicious German food. And you know, there's a Wheel and Sprocket opening in Bayview. So.
Oh yeah, I did know that. That's really exciting.
I think it's probably open now. I don't know. It was delayed because of COVID, but I don't know where it is.
I actually have a friend that either works there or will work there when they open. So she actually started the Cream City Hostel, which is now closed. Carolyn Weber. Yeah, she's involved in Wheel and Sprocket as well.
Oddly enough, the 700 other hotels that have opened in Milwaukee for the convention have not closed yet. And that's another book, I guess, because
definitely.
I have no idea what's going on with that. Would you like to talk at all? Oh, I believe you have a Heinemann's thing under breakfast. I was a Heinemann's obsessive, but I was not a breakfast person. This was one of the ones. I know they did a good breakfast, and actually one of the most successful post-Heinemann's locations is Maxwell's Pancake House on the North Shore. And I would say that's one of the few locations that's still Heinemann-esque.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a Heinemann's location.
That was a Heinemann's. There was, oh my gosh. Well, you wrote about the men's room that was in the Pabst building, I think, that they tore down. There was one by the train.
East Wisconsin Avenue.
Yeah, it's where the 100 East building is now. And there was, oh yes, Christine Hansen talks about Heinemann's coffee cake. I loved it too. I also loved the chocolate chip cookies. When I worked in Whitefish Bay for 5 years, my late coworker, Beverly, who I loved very dearly, she was amazing. It was 3 cookies for like 75 cents. And she would have 1 cookie a day and she'd just leave the other 2 there. And I would buy 3 cookies and I would eat the 3 cookies within 2 minutes. But if I can just mention, since you're a bakery person too, I will mention something you didn't mention in the book. The greatest cake of all time was the Heinemann's Lush Torte, which was a sponge cake rolled in chocolate buttercream frosting, like covered with chocolate carbon frosting, rolled in toffee with some chocolate icing too. And I saved my money every week because I was working as a bookseller, I had nothing. And I would get the chicken salad that they put chutney on it, like a layer of chocolate. It was so strange, but I really liked almonds. And then I only water, because I could have water, I could have a drink, or I could have my cake.
Always the cake.
So this was the Heinemann's, the original one that was the candy store on Milwaukee Street. And the candy factory was upstairs, and it was on Saturdays, Senator Herb Kohl was there and would shake hands with people.
I'm sad to say that I feel like at one point I ate at Heinemann's. I do not remember it at all. So it's possible I didn't, but this coffee cake, everything about it sounds spectacular. Now that cake that you just mentioned, like.
They were good bakers. They were really good bakers. Yeah. And people get confused because it's that Heinemann's in Chicago. So you'd start talking about the good cakes and pies of Heinemann's, and they were like, oh yeah, you can get them in the supermarket. I'm like, no, you can't. Different number of N's.
Yeah, and that's good information for me to know too, because Heinemann's is in my list for the Chicago bakery book. I thought it was easy to say, but it's not.
I think at one point there was some supermarket in Milwaukee. No one does now, but at one point there was a supermarket carrying their products, which made things very confusing. But also, yes, there's a lot of things they had. What was the salad? The salad, they had a salad called Cleopatra because it was their take on a Caesar. And they were the first place I ever saw that served a Rachel. No, Elaine, I don't mean my dear friend Elaine, who I love, love, love. I love Heinemann's, but that is a New York bakery product. Thank you very much, which is actually now owned by Grupo Bimbo of Mexico.
Yeah, and it's all over the grocery stores.
Yeah, but when I was around, it was a very early New York thing. No, Heinemann's is a Chicago bakery chain that distributed to restaurants.
Yep, and it was
Elaine and I are going to talk about this for hours afterwards because I know she's going to have a lot of strong things to share as well. You mentioned, interesting enough, I now know, because Milwaukee has so many wonderful other ethnic restaurants, but when you have a 75 cutoff point, that makes it really hard. I think the only Mexican place you have is Conejitos. I kind of thought maybe Rudy's would have made the cut.
Well, there was also a problem of people not responding to me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, particularly with the Mexican spots. And Conejitos, nobody talked to me from Conejitos. That was all research, so.
You're like, you would pull greasy paper plates out of the garbage and analyze them. But I have a friend who hasn't eaten out in a year, and he's like, I just want to go to Cody. That's all. And Rudy's was another place where you'd wait. It was the same time as Coffee Trader. You'd wait an hour, and then you'd have Mexican food. You're like, why did I wait an hour? But you did it again in about a month. Yeah. It was just a nice atmosphere, I think. And I love that you I love that you mentioned talk about Abu's, because that was another place that, and also the fact that we get another ethnic restaurant in one of my very, very favorite places in Milwaukee.
Someone mailed me a physical menu of theirs. I don't remember their first name, but they moved from Milwaukee to New Mexico, maybe. Mm-hmm. And they mailed me one of the physical menus so that I could like see everything, and said that I owed them falafel now.
Yeah, they had. I mean, there's many good places to have falafel in Milwaukee, but I still obsess over Abu's falafel. And though Mr. Abu had passed away, Alice was still working there when I went, and she was there pretty much every day. And and then one day there was pizza. And I was like, uh-oh, something's wrong here.
To include.
Because all I wanted was a falafel sandwich, their soup, their lentil soup, and their rosewater lemonade. And I have had rosewater lemonade from many, many places trying to duplicate the Abu's rosewater lemonade, but there was nothing like the Abu's
lemonade. The rose lemonade I've had was at the International Folk Festival at the state fairgrounds, because they have a family that comes and sells rose lemonade that's delicious.
Well, maybe that one day, so that's good for me to know that someday there will be rosewater lemonade for me to have. I want you to talk about a restaurant that I missed, the Public Natatorium. It is perhaps the most spectacular and unique thing that ever happened to Milwaukee, and maybe ever will happen. Would you say?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely. I don't think that you can really top that anymore. And it's funny that you said Mater's was the most touristy of the German restaurants, because my parents always took me to the touristy spots, and I was so mad that I never got to go to the Public Natatorium. So, and what an interesting concept. So for anybody who doesn't know, the Public Natatorium was a public bathhouse, a pool house, and they turned the pool into a dolphin tank, and they put tables around the pool and up on the balcony, and they would do dolphin shows while you were eating dinner. From what I understand, the smell was not the best, but the food was pretty good. And then it spectacularly failed. So they were doing like 3 to 5 dolphin shows every night, and they kept bringing in more animals and hiring trainers, and they were basically hemorrhaging money. They bought like the most expensive glassware, the most expensive dishes they could get, like the most expensive flowers for the tables, that they couldn't like really pay for proper maintenance of the pool. So the dolphins started to get sick and they got sent away, and then they went bankrupt.
Oh my God. Jessie, oh, she said this to everyone. She said that Celesta serves, the vegan restaurant serves the rosewater lemonade and got the recipe from the owners. And, you know, I go by Celesta all the time, and one of my booksellers loves it, and I haven't been yet. And then I heard that the owner is friends with one of my customers. So I do, now that I know there's rosewater lemonade there.
You should go get it for sure.
Yeah, it is crazy. Now, the good news is that even had that restaurant been super successful and profitable, I can't believe they could have really been treating the animals the way they should have been treated. So my guess is it would have closed eventually anyway. So this was maybe a quick death, made it sort of more legend.
Yeah, it's so legendary. So legendary. And I talked to one of the dolphin trainers who now lives in Florida. It was such a wonderful story. And I either read this on in an article or he told me, I can't remember exactly where I got it from, but the dolphins were shipped to different parks where they could heal and get better and live out their lives being healthy, happy dolphins. And one of the trainers went to see one of the dolphins, and the dolphin recognized him.
They are smart. We know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was such a sweet story. The whole concept of the restaurant is dubious.
It seemed like some sort of 1920s, like, or what are the not the Coen brothers, but I'm trying to think of the filmmaker who feels like the one had the hotel.
Is it Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson, yes. The whole thing sounds like a Wes Anderson movie.
I'm sure they could make an entire Wes Anderson movie just about it. We should pitch it. I think that would be really good.
You know him. I'm sure someone at Milwaukee Film knows him.
I have a mild connection to him, but not enough to pitch a movie.
Very impressive. When I moved to Milwaukee many years ago, I have a weird connection to the fish restaurant, the famous fish restaurants that don't get here because, well, one's in St. Paul Fish Market was, Tim is the brother of someone I went to college with, and Smith Brothers, which was, when I moved here, the big fish restaurant in Port Washington, that was one of the brothers I went to college with the daughter. So it's like, what is this with fish? But so because of that, he was in, when I kind of visited, I got to meet somebody from the Convention and Visitors Bureau now, which is now Visit Milwaukee, which we belong to. So I wanted to get on the tourist map. And she said, well, I can take you to lunch. Which Serbian restaurant do you want to go to? And I'm like, there's even one?
Which one did you go to?
Well, I went to both. Actually. I really love Burek. So
we were just talking about it the other day. We haven't had it in a really long time, and I miss it.
I was thinking, I could take out actually, or I could ask. I work with Ogi, who's Serbian. I could ask if his mother would make me. But that seems like the boss saying, "Go make me a Burek." Maybe I'll just take it out. So, do you have anything to say about the Serbian restaurants here?
Yes, I love the Serbian restaurants, and they are so nice, such lovely, genuine, fabulous people. So Old Town Serbian Gourmet House and Three Brothers, I did not realize when I started writing the book that it's the same family.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Until I read the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're welcome.
See, very useful.
Yeah. So Three Brothers was first, and it was opened, the father of these brothers opened it as a place for the family to reconnect after they all escaped the Holocaust. And the Three Brothers came, and then one of them decided, I'm going to start my own place, and they went and started Old Town Serbian Gourmet House, and now it's owned by his daughter, I think. But I just think it's so cool that the two like iconic Serbian restaurants in Milwaukee, I think they're the only Serbian restaurants in Milwaukee are.
Well, there was, I mean, officially the fish fry at Sir Paul.
Well, yeah.
which is for sale. So.
Is it?
Yeah. They put Sir Paul up for sale. They had problems during COVID and protests.
Okay. Right.
And it's been losing money. So
right. Well, and I tried to research Serb Hall's fish fry, but aside from a lot of comments from people on Facebook saying how amazing it is, I didn't really find too much. But yeah, the burek is incredible. I call it Shopska salad. I don't know if that's what it's called at Old Town Gourmet House, but that's really good. And there's a recipe for that in the book. So, yeah.
I was going to say, Christine mentioned to everybody that I think that's Aladdin is the stall at the public market.
Yeah, it's Aladdin.
So sells a good rosewater lemonade. So that's something for me to know, because all I get are the 2 different kinds of samosas. I did want to mention, you do have, I'm a bit of an old department store obsessive. You do mention Tasty Town. And I will tell us a little about what you learned about Tasty Town, because when I moved here, they'd already done the remodel and for the Grand Avenue and just put the stand on the edge of the mall. They did actually still have the fancy restaurant on the 7th floor. But I only went there once before it became Marshall Fields. It had its own set of recipes, but it's obviously a Chicago thing, though people still seem very interested in the Yule log and things.
Yeah.
Would you have, I know Tasty Town was the spot to go to.
Tasty Town was the spot, and my sentimental connection to Tasty Town isn't related to Tasty Town, it's related to Gertie the duck. Because our dog's name is Gertie. Well, one of the dogs.
I had a cat named Gertie.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, so Tasty Town was the place to be, especially if you wanted ice cream. They were filling more than 1,600 orders per day just in ice cream for people dining at the lunch counter, which is substantial. So that was about 100 gallons of ice cream every day. Quite a bit. I have to say, I was not too drawn in by the food that people recommended to me here.
Gimbel's was I believe known for its chocolate covered strawberries in season.
Yeah, I did hear about that, and that sounds delicious.
Oh, come on, that sounds good.
It does. That sounds great. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, but it is weird. I mean, I have to say, when I have a bunch of department store cookbooks and stuff like that. You look at the recipes and go, huh? Now I will. But on the other hand, there are some other things. Like I wish I could pull up the photo, which I can't seem to pull up, which I did share last week. But you mentioned the sunshine cake from George Watts's.
From George Watts, the legendary sunshine cake. I will flip through while I'm talking to see if I can find it.
And somebody asked about recipes. Is the sunshine cake, did they share the sunshine cake recipe?
It is in the book.
Oh, good. There's Heinemann's meatloaf, the Pollock Natatorium's shashlik, which we were talking about, is Carl Rosh's spatzel, which was very good. Saz's poppers, Old Town's tomato salad, Usinger's sausage soup. Oh, here it is, filled sunshine cake.
Mm-hmm.
Churchino's tiramisu, and a patchki recipe. A patchki upon your house, or maybe a few, if you're firm. Have you tried to make any of the recipes? Did you attempt?
Not yet. Well, I've made queso spatzel before, but not with Carl Rasch's recipe, just with the mix of spatzel and short on time. I will tell you the first thing I want to make is the lemon poppy seed pancakes from the cafe at the plaza. That recipe is in here. It sounds so good. I love it.
And they still make their lemon pie. I mean, I used to live around the corner from the plaza, so I used to go there a lot.
Yeah, they still make it with a blueberry syrup. It says their best seller. So, yeah. And I love pancakes and lemon poppy seeds. So
I'm very fond of the beans and barley poppy seed cake. If you've never had it,
I have
one of the finest things in Milwaukee.
I'll have to try it. I did like what I have. One of the things I have in here is from Gillis's, and it's like the toppings for their classic sundaes. So you can let's see, we've got the Scotch Jimmy treat, the strawberry deluxe, the zombie, and the dusty road. And so you can kind of make these all yourself at home, which I think is exciting, especially if people don't want to go out right now.
I suppose so. I'd be interested in taking out a sundae as opposed to making it.
I have taken out many a sundae from Gillis's, and it's wonderful. So highly recommend.
How far did you get, in terms of a restaurant that you had to take out? Was there something. What was the last thing you took out? Do you remember?
Oh gosh. Yes, it was a Polish restaurant, Polonez.
Oh, Polonaise, yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
there
still,
are
I
a
think,
lot of,
in St. Francis now?
I
Is that the
think
one?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there
It used to be right by the on Lincoln. I went there when it was on Lincoln.
okay. I feel
I've
like I
never been to the
maybe should have included it because I've gotten some negative feedback that it's
hate
not in
mail.
there. Just a little, but
You
but
mentioned in terms of, we actually have a lot of barbecue places now, but I think you mentioned Speed Queen.
Speed Queen. I love Speed Queen. They met with me and brought a whole album of photos. I was a little sad they didn't bring me some food, but that's okay.
You can go yourself next time.
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah, we've done the Speed Queen. I feel like you just aren't a Milwaukeean if you haven't done it.
I love the uniforms, and I haven't been in a while, so I don't know if they still wear like the dress with the apron kind of thing, like the old fashioned type uniform. I liked that a lot. That was very clever. But I talked to the niece of the owner, who was just so super helpful and so fun, and you could tell she takes a lot of pride in the business, and the entire family does. It's really yeah.
I'm a big fan of it's. Unfortunately hasn't been around since 75 or since 95, but Heaven's Table in the Crossroad Collective, and I think he opened another location in Tulsa. He's an owner, so wonderful, and we did an event with him, a barbecue event, and now I go in and get my fix occasionally. But there is good barbecue here. So let's see if I've forgotten anything else. You've got our friends at Bartolotta have a little love in here.
And they were one of the more recent.
Yes, that's right. That's like 93 or something, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so many people wanted me to include Bartolotta, and also I felt like I needed to because of Joe Bartolotta. Like
oh my God, royalty. They filled the Riverside Theater.
Yeah.
Memorial.
So I wanted to make sure he was included because I felt like he deserved that type of recognition. And everybody loves the restaurants.
And they really did help put Milwaukee, made another place for Milwaukee on the restaurant map. I love the picture of Glorioso's Italian Villa because I never realized that Emperor of China was an Italian restaurant before, and I just keep looking at it and going, Trio's Pizza, which they still have in the restaurant, and in the grocery store. I'm like, okay. Let me see it.
There you go. A little bit, yeah.
Just amazing. That's like.
They were so excited to share their history, and with every photo that they sent, they had a huge long explanation, and it was really nice.
Well, it's always nice when the restaurant's still around and it's still in the family and have the heritage, and so that's it is pretty wonderful. And Brady Street is still lucky to have it. So any of the particular, I think you mentioned a few steakhouses and things. Any other place you feel like we're getting to the end? Any other place that you really just feel like you couldn't end a conversation without mentioning?
Yes, Benji's.
Oh, the delis.
Yeah. I'm very particular about my corned beef sandwiches. And I feel that most places cut it way too thin, like lunch meat style, and Benji's and the other one, Jake's. They cut it thick, like really nice and thick. And that is just, I love it so much. And if you haven't had a Benji's corned beef sandwich, please go. They're so good.
I used to work with somebody who used to go to Jake's like once a week, and she would
really?
It's like one of those things, how some people like, you just always know when you're talking and they're going to bring up something. It's like, I can't believe how many times she worked corned beef into a conversation.
I could probably do that.
So I just had mishmash soup, which is what I usually get at Benji's. I was there last week. I will say it is that, they do have some things to go. It does upset me a little that you can't get a fish. I understand there's many things that you're not going to really have the market for, but it's just sort of like, I just need a potato.
Yeah, when they were explaining
good bagels, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care
They
about that.
they had to reformat the menu, and everything they said that they had to take off, I was like, wait, I want that. Like, it sounds really good.
Someday we'll have a place that sells some of these things again, but alas, no. But they do have a lot of really good things there still, and good corned beef.
Definitely.
So as I mentioned, we have classic restaurants in Milwaukee for sale. Jennifer will be continuing to do programs, probably in person eventually, and she's working on another book. And you can find this recording on the Boswell archive probably within about 2 weeks. And there's probably at least one more with the more traditional. I didn't want the traditional PowerPoint because I figured you've all seen that, and maybe we'd bring up something that can get brought up. I don't really know.
We went far off the PowerPoint script.
Yeah, we were, oh good. That's what I was hoping. So now you can watch it twice. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you all for coming, because we wouldn't have a virtual bookstore without you, and an in-person one starting on Saturday, Independent Bookstore Day. We're open for browsing 10 to 6. So.
Thanks, everybody.